You left? All right, so yesterday Alice talked a lot about behavioral stuff with verbal and nonverbal children, aggressive and benign children. So she's going to come up here and answer any questions that you possibly have, so feel free. I do have some people from home who asked a bunch of questions yesterday and today, so I'll read some of their questions the best I can with the English abilities that I have, okay? All right, so try to stay here as much as you can, but if you have to do your thing, do it, all right?
I know who to pick on now. Thanks for the heads up, Bill. Yeah. So I'm here to answer questions. Due to the time limits that we had yesterday, we couldn't take everybody's personal questions, but this is the time to do it. So if anybody has a behavioral question, I will do the best that I can to field that question. Anybody here? It's like, okay, no? All right, well, I'll see you in 2 years. No. In the back. Okay, so the question was, what about kids who have compulsive behavior? So one of the characteristics that we see quite often in kids with a range of neurological disorders, including AHC, is what is, I'm not going to use it in the strict clinical sense, but kind of the OCDs or the compulsive, the obsessive compulsive type behaviors. And depending on the category of these compulsive behaviors, we do slightly different things. But the good news is there are some tried and true methods for dealing with it. And I think I'll start out by talking a little bit about the fixation or the perseveration, repeating on a certain topic. When a child has a compulsion to perform an action or to talk about something repeatedly, the common sense kind of reaction might be to keep answering them. Typically, and I'll give you an example, I remember not long ago I was walking down a hallway of a school and there was a teacher with a little boy, and this is what the teacher was saying: we're not going to talk about that anymore. I don't know what it was. Okay, I didn't hear that. We're not going to talk about that anymore. And the little boy was asking, well, when are we going to, I think it was something like, when are we going to go to the pool? We're not, what did I say? We're not talking about that anymore, honey. Now, what did I say when you said that before? I said, we're not going to talk about that. So I'm not going to answer any more questions about that. No, remember what I said? What did I say? I said that we're going to go next week, right? That's what I said. So we're not going to talk about it. And I actually took a little data. She talked for 15 minutes about not talking about it. That is a very, and I'm sure she was not really conscious of what she was doing. The tendency is to answer questions. When a child has a question, we tend to try to answer it. If a child has a concern or worry, they're fixating on something, we try to use reasoning to help them understand when something can happen or why it can't happen. We use reasoning when in fact the behavior has nothing to do with reason. If it's a compulsive, fixated interest or topic, it's more, it has to be handled more as an obsessive compulsive type behavior. So here's what we do about it. When it's a fixation verbally, if the child keeps asking a question, I will answer one time in as simple, concrete way as possible. So if it's something like, when are we going shopping? When are we going shopping? So I might, given the child's cognitive ability, their language ability, of course there's a range, so we have to go from simple to, we can even sometimes write something down for a child. But I will put it in a visual, concrete format. So whether it's a word like after dinner, whether it's a picture where we show a picture of dinner, and then I will post that, and I'm going to point to it and say, this is when we're going. Then I am going to say, like the teacher, now I'm done with that subject. I can talk to you about other things, but if you want to know, it's posted. So you concretize, you make concrete the answer. This is what it is. Now, that's easy to do. The hard part is then truly not answering it. So the more that you try to reassure or answer or reason with a behavior that has OCD elements to it, the worse it gets not the better. Every time you answer it, you've now restarted. It's like that game Sorry, where you go back to start. So it's really important to give them some solid, concrete information and to make it in a format, either an actual object that can represent the answer, or a picture, or a word, a post-it, whatever you want to use. And then you make that, you memorialize that, and you're done with it. And you truly have to be done with it. Now, I have been in people's homes where the parent followed that technique, and after an hour and a half or 2 hours, actually kind of turned to the child and said, well, I already told you that. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So here's what I need to warn you about with this technique. You have to be dedicated to not talking about that anymore. Because if you say you're not going to and you don't for an hour and a half, and then you do, now you've taught that child to persist, not for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, but for at least an hour and a half. That's their new baseline. So that you have to really be committed to this. And it's not always easy because kids can trick you by asking it a different way. So be aware of that. So that is one way to address that verbal fixation. Do you want to give me another example of where it might be something more of a behavioral fixation? Yes? Skin picking. Okay. Now that's a little different. You know, they have a horrible word for that in the DSM, excoriation is what it's called. It's like really unpleasant, but that is the actual term for it. Picking their own skin, picking scabs. My daughter actually had that, where she was very scarred up because any time that there was like a little scab or whatever, she had to pick it. And I'm not sure that she wasn't sometimes making a little mark to gain a scab that she could pick off. Skin picking is a hard one. It's a lot like hair pulling. And depending on the child, this is what I would ask. And I might have to ask you a few questions, so she might need a mic to kind of answer some of these. Is this behavior something that occurs when you're actually seeing the child, or is it more in secret when the child is in bed or in their room?
It happens both times. Like, she does it in secret, but also it's like she can't control it. She
right.
sees something and she has to pick.
On her body.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will first start with what not to do. Don't do this. Stop picking. Put your hands down. Stop picking. Unfortunately, when you have a behavior that is compulsive like that, that word, she might actually obey for a second and then go right back to it. And it probably, like the fixating issue, it'll probably increase. It'll probably make it worse. It's a very difficult behavior, and I'll tell you why, to change. The reinforcement, and this is a good opportunity for just to touch on the word function for a moment. In behavior lingo, we use the word function a lot, and what that means is the purpose or payoff of a behavior. What is the reinforcement that is supporting a behavior? And to tell you the truth, all behavior, in order for it to continue, if you see a behavior repeating, it has to be reinforced. If a behavior is not reinforced, you're not going to see it again. So somehow we have to find the source of the reinforcement. What is maintaining that behavior? That's your first key to a resolution. So with skin picking, or hair pulling, or biting your nails, the skin picking reinforcement, do you think you have a sense of what it is? What's the reinforcement value of it?
I'm not sure. Like, okay. I've been trying to figure out if I could find a pattern of when she does it.
Well, I can probably tell you what it is. The interesting thing about any kind of picking behavior is that the source of reinforcement is not attention, and it's not control of you. It's not to obtain a tangible or a cookie or anything like that. Although attention can help, attention can be frosting on the cake. If it bugs you, I might do it more. So attention may have some influence, but it is not the source of the reinforcement. It's what we call automatic reinforcement. That means that the sensory, the sensation, is what supports it. Automatically reinforced behaviors are the hardest ones to change because you as the parent or caregiver don't have any leverage with withdrawing, manipulating that reinforcement. She has all the control. And the action, it feels good. It gives you a sensation that you just feel like you need to access to the point where it turns to pain. So we all know where we're trying to leave something that itches alone. Don't scratch that. Well, you have to scratch it. It's that kind of an intense sensory demand or imperative to do it. So it's a very difficult behavior to stop. Automatically reinforced behaviors are terribly immune to outside intervention. But I'm going to give you some things that can sometimes help. If you can identify certain situations where it is likely to occur, we can sometimes temporarily suppress it in different ways. And I'm guessing she does it under the following situations. And tell me if I'm wrong, because this is a complete speculation. I'm guessing she does it at rest, like while watching certain shows or getting absorbed in something as like a comfort thing, like when she's watching TV or listening to music or something like that. And under stressful situations where she might become nervous or agitated. So it's usually both those sides. I intend to indulge in habits, physical habits like biting my nails, if I am either nervous or bored, and maybe I'm watching TV and I'm going to start doing that sensory stimulation. Is it either of those two things?
It's both.
It's both those things. That's that. I mean, that is the common type of situation that engenders that kind of behavior. What I would probably do is a twofold kind of thing. During times when she is actually maybe watching TV, listening to music, I might begin to use that teaching method that I talked about yesterday. I don't know if you were in the session yesterday, but we had a little girl who was screaming while watching that. She had shrieky screams, and for her it was a similar thing. It's a sensory, almost like a stim. So what we do for stims of any kind, we do something called stimulus control and teaching an incompatible response. So is this going to be perfect? And the answer, no. I'm going to be very honest with you. It's a very difficult thing to stop because it is so automatically reinforced. But we can help it. So what you can do is set up a situation where you know she's likely to skin pick. And let's say it's the TV. And you would say, when we're watching this show, we're going to use our hands to, and I would give her something else. We're either going to give her a squishy thing or coloring, anything else that she can do with her hands, something that she can squeeze, hold a pillow. I don't care what it is, but you're going to do that with your hands. Don't tell her, no picking, okay? I think that will only put it on her. Don't think about the pink elephant in the room. That's all you're going to think about. So you're going to hold the pillow, you're going to squeeze the pillow. That's what you're going to do with your hands. And I would give her some kind of a frequent reinforcement system while she's doing it. So she's getting the reinforcement of the show. And I might add, if she's a kid who likes little bits of candy, I'm not opposed to using it. We use what we can. So whatever she likes, little sips of drinks that she's maybe not usually, like maybe Coke or something that you wouldn't normally want her to have, little sips of that, I would add a reinforcement. And when she starts to pick, I would freeze the TV, put it on pause. Oh, we're supposed to be holding our pillow, or we're supposed to have really quiet hands, or whatever it is she's doing. We're supposed to be coloring with our hands. Then wait 10 seconds like you saw in the video and say, let's try it again. So that you're actually going to teach her the skill of inhibiting that response. Right now, she indulges the response whenever she can. So to repeat, the first layer is to stop saying stop. Stop saying stop. That actually makes it worse. It only puts it on her mind more, and then she knows it bugs you. So if there's any element of kind of wanting to bug you a little bit, they'll do it. So you have to pretend you don't care. The next step is to actually teach her the art of inhibition. And I would do it when it's easy for you. Obviously, you can't teach it when she's alone. So when she's involved in something where she's likely to do it, you teach the incompatible response and you reinforce that. And you continue to do that at different points of the day. Often it will generalize because once you can cut the habit, you're in good shape. Now here's another added thing. Here's part 3. And this is going to sound really crazy. You're going to make her do it at times when she's not inclined to do it. So this is called stimulus control. And I have to tell you about a case I had of a boy who compulsively scratched his arms to the point of extreme bloody arms. He was in a group home, and just the blood and the mess, he would just scratch his arms, and the group home people put Pringle cans on his arms. And I said, you know what, don't do that, because actually it's going to make it worse. He's just going to scratch his hands. You're not teaching him anything here. So they did it anyway, and he started scratching his hands. I said, oh, that's a bad idea. They want to put gloves on. That's a bad idea because he's going to then probably bang his head. Sure enough, they put the gloves on, he started banging his head. So I proposed something nobody wanted to do. I actually rewarded him for scratching his arms, but under my conditions. So I had a folding chair, not very comfortable. I said, there's the chair, and times of day. This is for scratching. This is where you scratch. This is the time you scratch. I'm setting the timer, and I gave him potato chips for scratching his arms. No, it sounds very odd. But he would then go to the chair when he wanted to scratch his arms. He would go to that chair or be put in the chair to scratch his arms. And lo and behold, he was scratching his arms more there than anywhere else because that's where all the source of the reinforcement was. And gradually I folded up the folding chair so it was less and less available until the behavior of scratching arms 100% extinguished. And it all came from reinforcing the habit when he didn't want to do it. I've done this with thumb sucking, with twirling and pulling hair, and I have not done it with the picking as opposed to, I've done it with arm scratching. I think that has real potential because when you engage in a habit under variables that the urge is not there, it cuts the urge. You don't want to do it. And so you now pair up the picking with no urge to pick. And it tends to then extinguish that cycle of urge, engage in the thing, feel good. Urge, engage, feel reinforced. You've now disrupted the maintaining variables of that behavior. So I think enough said about that one thing. However, if you go to my email, which I think, is it available to everybody, Sharon? Okay, if you go to my email and follow up with me, I would actually very much appreciate it because I can then narrow down for your individual kid which of those or the combination that we want to do, and I can encourage you to take a little data and send it to me, and I can follow up on that with you. But I think it has real potential. You're welcome, yeah. Another question? Hi.
Hi, my name is Rega. We're from Iceland, me and Ziki. We have Sunna, who's 10. We have a very big problem with general hygiene, like taking a bath. It has been going on for quite a few years. She gets very excited. She knows she's about to take a bath. We'll have to talk about it. Sometimes we have even stopped talking about it because it'll make her more anxious, scared.
So you're saying that she's excited in an avoidant way?
Yes.
Yes. Agitated?
Yes.
Not excited, eager?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
She hates it.
She hates it. Okay.
Yeah. Even sometimes we would not be able to bathe her for a whole week, and she will.
And does the shower bring on an episode?
Oh yes, a shower.
Okay, so,
and even the bath too. So.
And do you give her sponge baths instead? Is that how you keep her clean? You just kind of sponge her?
We do whatever we can, but and she's grown. She's getting heavy.
I
And
have
tall
some
and sweating.
suggestions. I don't know that these are going to necessarily help with it, but I'm going to answer your question in terms of a general kind of phobic reaction to certain events, an avoidance reaction. Sometimes a child who has, yeah.
I want to add to
Okay.
that. When she's in the bath, she doesn't want to come out of it.
Oh, okay, great.
So she's not afraid of the bath itself.
Okay.
So when
Okay.
she's in, she's fine, but getting her into it takes an hour or so.
So let me ask you this question. Do you add the water once she's in, or do you have her step into a full tub?
Full tub.
I would suggest the other. I would have some toys in the tub and have her in a dry tub and add the water when she's in it instead of having her step into a full tub. See if that helps a little bit. So that it's a gradual, sort of a gradual filling up of the tub.
But, you know, for taking the clothes off, that's too a problem. It'll take a half an hour.
Just to take her clothes off?
Yes. So even she knows she's about to take a bath. And
so I would do this, but let me back up a little bit and say, okay, how can we even get into the situation that she's already created a lot of phobia about? We're talking about a kind of a classic phobic situation. And there are a couple things that I'm going to suggest. Some may work, some may not. One of the things is that when a person has a feared situation where it's let's say it's a medical intrusion. Some kids, they don't want to have their shot, their insulin shot, or some kids who have hydration, they don't want to go to the nurse for their hydration. Or they don't, it's something on a lower level, they may not want to have their fingers cut, their nails cut. So what I do is I try to establish a little more control over it. So giving her control over the time and which tub can sometimes help allay some of the feeling of lack of control. She probably has a little panic because it's an inevitable, what we call an unavoidable aversive. So the behavioral definition of anxiety is unavoidable aversive. So something negative or aversive is about to happen, and I have no way of avoiding it. So by giving her more control over when that's going to happen, like making a choice, okay, you know, you can do it at this time. I would have like a scatter plot, like a time, you know, where you have a chart where it's, you know, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. You have the times and have a little icon. Say, okay, put the tub wherever you want it. Of course, times where they're available. Okay, not midnight. Okay, have her some control over that. And if you have 2 bathrooms, do you in your house?
we have one bathtub, one shower. So the shower is
No good?
We've been taking her to my mom's house because we have a fairly big bathtub, and she has a smaller one. So, but now, even though she has been taking the bath at my mom's house, she knows if we go to her house, then she'll, okay, yeah, I have to take a bath. You know, I'm going to my grandma's house. Oh, yeah, I'm taking a bath. Oh, my goodness. So just even that, then it's a problem.
Right. So if you only have one tub, the idea of having her control where it occurs, that you're not going to be able to do. But you can control certain aspects of it, like when it occurs, that she can pick. You can sometimes do different little changes in the tub, like putting a chair in there, doing little things that could possibly help her. I'm guessing that there's not a whole lot that we can do to make her not dread this. I see it now, though, as a habit kind of thing that has developed. And when you have that, if you had the capacity to change it up, that often will help habits. When you say it takes an hour getting ready, what takes the hour? You have to like pin her down and remove her clothes and she's screaming? Is that what it looks like? Or are you asking her to take her clothes off?
We're asking her.
Oh, okay.
And so we're patiently waiting for an hour for that to happen.
I think that that's just kind of torture for her. And it's kind of like, do you take the Band-Aid off real quick, or do you, do it in little increments? I think this is a case where I would have her pick the time. When the time comes, I would maybe give her a 10-second warning, no more than that. Oh, we've got a few seconds. You pick, it's the time that you said, And then this is the one situation where I would do what we call a lead through. I wouldn't ask her. It's sort of like, okay, and now I want you to prepare yourself for the electric chair. Get undressed. We're going to give you a gown. You know, that's like, oh my God, you know, I don't want to do that. So I would instead, I would remove that onus on her. She can learn to dress and undress for fun things. And I would just lead through it as quickly as I could. I just get that done, carry her in, put her in, and I might try the dry tub thing and adding the water as she goes. Does she have toys and things in there that she likes to play with?
No, not really. But even, you know, the transition from taking the clothes off, and she'll get cold. I mean, we live in Iceland, so yeah. it is fairly cold.
I thought Iceland was the green and Greenland was the ice.
Yeah.
Well, even if you wrap her in a towel, yeah. Even if you wrap her up, the idea is to do it quickly. To do it quickly, to get her in, and I would have a huge reinforcer as soon as she is in that tub. And I'm even thinking that I might want to reinforce her for going in the bathroom at other times, even when it's not the tub, to make the bathroom, to remove some of the aversiveness of the bathroom. So I might have all kinds of fun little, I would bait that bathroom with treats, fun things, surprises, so that you kind of de-aversify that tub. But the bottom line is going to be, I think you're drawing it out, which is only making her anxiety increase. So I would say the race is to the swift. When it's let her control the time, when it gets to be the time, I would physically get everything up, get her in the tub, get it going, and then high levels of reinforcement. And that's what the system that I would use for that. Again,
really?
Sharon is going to make my email available so that if you want to follow up with me, I'm happy to do that.
Just on the cold, I got to read a couple of questions from the internet. Some people are home they've been wanting to ask questions for a couple of days. But what we do with Sean is we put him on the bathroom, on the toilet, right? And we say, Sean, you're going to take a shower. We turn the water on the shower, and it steams up the bathroom, right? So when you have steam, so I didn't fill the tub or anything, but if you steam it, then it's hot. So he says, I don't want to take a shower. And I said, I don't care. And then I grab the back of his shirt and I pull it off.
Yeah.
Well, you understand there's no control. There's no control for the child. We're taking a shower. This is the time that we have to do it. But I give, we give warnings, 5 minutes all the time. You know what I mean? He hears the shower, it steams up, rip his clothes off.
So actually what Bill is saying is kind of the lead through. In a way, prolonging it is actually probably making it a lot worse.
Do it every single day.
Do it quickly.
Yeah.
No fuss, no fuss, get her in. But then there has to be some, once she's in there, making that a highly reinforcing place and activity will help a little bit with some of that phobic response.
Okay.
All right.
This is a good question. You want to read it? I don't read English that well, huh? Read this. In the small little letters.
All right. It's from Deanna Housing. Oh, God, Jesus. The question is for Alice Belgrade.
Okay.
I have a 26-year-old son with AHC. He is a foot taller than me. His father passed away 5 years ago. He has gotten progressively harder to handle, whether out or at home. There is no way for him to get him to a safe place to calm down. It is usually an obsession that gets him started, and if you block his goal in any way, he will become aggressive to get his way. The only thing we are able to do is to remove anything in danger from the area, which block doors, prevent him from getting in an area that was, what does that say?
Okay.
The question is very simple. All the kids want to do something, and they can't verbalize it without, you know what I mean? So
yeah, I was going to say next question. No, I was
no, that's fine.
Okay.
But anyways, I was just
I think I got the gist of it.
Gist of it.
What she's saying is that once the kid gets something in their head that they want to do, they become extremely intensely fixated on getting what they want, and when they're big and strong and taller than you, and you're saying no, it's a dangerous situation. She doesn't know what to do. That's a huge issue, and there are a lot of different ways to approach it. But the first thing I would do is I would look at it as, all right, let's back up a little bit. Because if you just look at it as once he's completely activated and in a rage and you're out, that's not the time to kind of plan your intervention. So let's back up and look at this whole thing of teaching him to manage that mission kind of behavior, that intense goal-directed behavior for things that can't happen or that aren't going to happen. So one of the things that I work on is something called the bad surprise plan. This is a way to shape kids to accept no. Remember yesterday we talked about when the rage comes when you're blocked. You have an agenda and you're blocked. Rage. That's what that lady is describing. She's describing a kid who has an extreme MO. The motivating operations are powerful, and somehow he's being blocked. Therefore, there's rage. Now, at 26, that's a really hard time to begin teaching something new. So I will get back to the age thing in a moment. But what I would do is, and especially if you have younger kids, this is going to be an issue. And it's an issue for any kid who gets these extreme obsessive kinds of goal-directed behaviors. You teach something called the bad surprise plan. This is how it works. You desensitize the child to that blocking of their agenda. And you do it in a very systematic shaping kind of way. So you actually tell them, there's a couple elements of this. You actually tell them, you know, we're going to play a game. It's called the bad surprise game. This is how it works. I'm going to tell you there's going to be a trick, and it's going to be kind of a bad surprise. And I usually kind of tell people, you know, in life there's good surprises like, oh, you won this, and it's candy. And there's bad surprises like, oh, you thought you were going to go to the zoo, and it's pouring rain. Bad surprise. So they kind of know that in life has good surprises, life has bad surprises. Most kids are good with the good surprises, as we all are. It's when we are faced with a bad surprise that they go into rage. So we desensitize them. He has to first be desensitized at low levels. So you begin the process of saying, oh, there's going to be a bad surprise. And it's something he doesn't care at all about. Like, oh, the bad surprise is I was going to use this yellow bowl, and it's in the dishwasher, so now I'm going to use a blue bowl to put your cereal. Who cares? I'm fine. You start at that low threshold where you know it doesn't matter, just to get the kid used to that phrase and that experience. Oh, it's a bad surprise. Oh, so we'll use the yellow. You continue to go up and up the hierarchy of things that the child will care about very, very slowly and gradually. So they hear the language of, oh, that's a bad surprise. We're going to do B instead of A. Plan B. And Plan B has to have a reinforcer attached that is highly valuable to the child. So that in a way what we're doing is we're teaching flexibility here. Plan A didn't work. We're going to do Plan B. But you know what? Plan B is kind of better because then we're going to, you know, stop at the cupcake store. We're going to get a cupcake. So what you want to do is go through these steps of there's going to be a bad surprise probably in an hour, and it's just a game at first. Then it begins to be something that you actually plan where you gradually increase the intensity of that child's obsession so that you're desensitizing them to those blocked agenda situations where they begin to learn to accept. I think of this as a target behavior is not how do I get my 26-year-old son to not be rageful or aggressive. The target behavior is how do I get my son to accept disappointment? That becomes your behavioral goal. So once you set a goal of, okay, so why does he become so rageful? What's the skill deficit? The skill deficit is the kid can't handle the disappointment of no. Okay, once we understand it that way, we teach it. Now here's where people don't follow my advice. My advice is slow and steady and not immediate. You're not going to see great results for 6 months. Am I right, Kelly? It's going to take a while. So a word about the short term and the long term. We tend to do things that in the moment bring a short-term result. This worked now. Often that means giving in, giving the child what they want, bending over backwards, doing everything you can to quiet them, to give them that thing that they seem to want so badly. It's a short, and it works. If the child says they want a candy bar and they're starting to get really agitated, and you, quick, run to the drugstore, here it is, you want it, they had the Mars bar that you wanted, here it is. They're quiet now. The tendency is to give that immediate result. The problem is that it's a short-term de-escalation technique that leads to long-term escalation. So what this lady is referring to is, he's 26. So the long-term results is that you now have an adult, a big guy who's bigger than she is, who has never really learned the skill of accepting disappointment. I'm disappointed, it's okay, plan B. What's plan B? So what I would recommend even she do at this age is begin to target that skill. He's got to learn to accept the disappointment and be flexible enough to take an alternative. Here's the alternative. Here's what you can have. Once he's in a rageful situation, there's not a lot. All you can do is damage control and try to keep a kid safe. There isn't the magic wand to make him suddenly be happy. Now, I'm actually going to retract that. Unfortunately, the magic wand sometimes is poison, and I'll tell you why. Sometimes there is a magic wand, getting him what he wants, bending over backwards, quick, get him what he wants. Well, that might actually deter that incident only to increase it the next day. So you're kind of creating a monster by doing something in the moment that might actually like satisfy him. As far as his escalation in public, I mean, all you can do is try to keep that kid as safe as possible and avoid giving in to what that rage is about.
Say one thing real quick. It's funny that she said this child becomes aggressive because he can't do what he or she wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
So what we've done is we've actually let him go do what he wants to do to figure out what he's trying to do because he doesn't communicate. So at dinner time, if Shelby hits Isaac and Isaac says, ow, Sean just jumps up and runs to the freezer to get an ice pack. He doesn't tell us he's going, you know what I mean? And for years we were like, sit down, it's dinner time. But now we let him go. He gets the ice thing and he comes back.
Okay, I'm confused by that. So he hit somebody.
No. The other two kids are hitting each other.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
we can't hit
you
this
confused
shit.
me. Yeah, okay. So, all right. So here's what you're saying, but I don't want that mom to get confused. So here's what I'm hearing you say. Sometimes when a child can't communicate what it is that they're after, they have to at least indicate in some way what it is they were going for, because it could be benign. It could be something like, I just want to get the ice pack. So here's a sort of an addendum to what I said, because I really think you can get into quicksand if the child is intensely trying to do something and there's even a kind of aggressive element to that, and you say, well, you know, what do you want? What do you want? Show us. And they do it, and then it has, oh, okay, that's great. You can kind of start shaping up intensity, and physical intrusion becomes my way of communicating to you. That it can be, it's a double-edged sword. It can be kind of an issue. What I would probably want to do is find a system where you can replace that intensity of action to some level of communication. So I might even just deter it for a moment and say, wait, you want to go somewhere? You want to get something? Where you might even have some choices. And if he just nods, all right, hold on, calm down. Just walk calmly and show me what you want. Do you know that small little tweaking is huge? Because in my work, and in particular with kids with AHC, where there's that intensity of I have a mission and I'm going to do it, the intensity of action is what you want to change. You want to replace that moving forward with an intense sort of aggressive action with a calmer communicative, even if the communication is I'm going to show you. So word to the wise, and this goes back to what I had said yesterday about leaving the restaurant not during screaming, but a moment of calm. When he gets up like that, I might say, okay, wait, you have something on your mind. Sit down, calm down. You going somewhere? You getting something? Now we've got this moment of calm, not, that racing off. It's that action that I worry about with these kids, because it gets hooked in, and then you've got these huge guys who don't control that aggressive momentum. So I would lower that momentum and then go with what you were saying. Okay, show me what you want. Do you know that is a completely different behavioral sequence than jumping up and grabbing, all he wanted was the ice pack. Okay, but you have a kid who's then learning that the way that I get my world to do what I need and the way I get my agenda met is through these intense, abrupt, and sometimes aggressive movements. And we don't want that. You want to kind of cut the momentum, have a moment of quiet, and say, all right, now show me. Okay.
I think we always ask, where are you going? Because they have something to do.
They have something to do, but it's really critical. You'd be surprised how much of a difference it makes to have a moment of pause before you complete an action, just in terms of the sort of behavioral momentum that gets going. So if he's, and I'll tell you, the difference is, if he's already up and halfway there, or if he's like this, I'm just going to say, there's a difference between I have to act this out. So there's a difference versus so I worry about parents who first let the behavior happen and then figure it out. I'm more inclined to say, put a pause on your kid for 1 second. Okay, we're good. I'm going to listen. Show me. Or tell me. A world of difference between a 3-second interval. And if you don't mind me telling a quick story to illustrate this. Years ago, 20 years ago, I was at Chuck E. Cheese. I'll make this story shorter. At the table next to me was a mother with her little 4-year-old boy. And she had said to him, when the pizza comes, you're going to sit and eat the pizza. Because, they have all those like rides and things. So the pizza came. She said, now, you have to sit to eat your pizza. He takes his little pizza, and he goes running towards the fun stuff with the pizza in his hand. And he's about to eat it. And I see the mother do this, and in this second, she destroyed her parenting forever. She did this. In that small thing of, I'm going to stop you because you didn't follow, I said to sit with the pizza. He's running now with the pizza towards those little tunnels, right? She got up like, he's not listening. And then here's where disaster hit. Do I really want to run through the tunnel? Let it go. That moment is destructive, because now that little guy knows, here's how I get what I want. And that's what I just don't want to happen for not only your child, but any of these kids. Here's how I get what I want. I have to be fast and forceful. Fast and forceful wins the day, because then you can't catch me, or you're not going to bother. It's too much trouble. So I'm only saying that with any kind of momentum behavior where I have a mission, where I want to do something, make sure that fast and forceful doesn't actually win that calm and purposeful. Okay? That, and then you get what, then yeah, have it, get it, do it, then I'm good with it. So that's my answer. Anybody else who have somebody else select? Yeah.
You said something about in older kids, it's difficult. Is that chronological age, mental age, or is there any difference?
Good question. Again, a great question. So when I said age, what do I mean? I actually mean the chronological age and the size. So here's why. The longer you live, the more experience you have possibly doing the wrong thing or learning the wrong thing. So the longer you are alive, the more that bad habits get entrenched, and they're like concrete. So I do a lot of potty training. And to tell you the truth, even the kids, and I do mostly kids with special needs, really severe special needs, I still want them younger. Because after the age of 8, I find that that habit of just peeing in my pull-up, it's becoming so much more habituated. That becomes what I'm comfortable with. It becomes what I do. And so it is harder to teach an older person new ways of doing things. We all know that just for ourselves. It's once you get into a certain groove, and this is how I do it, you get more and more stuck in that old way. So of course it's easier to teach a younger child to do something different because they don't have much life experience. They're not a blank slate, but they are more open to learning, doing things a different way. So, I mean, that's why I say that. It's not about mental age or cognitive ability. In fact, sometimes high cognitive ability makes things more difficult because the more you verbalize, the more language you have, I think sometimes the more you can even manipulate certain things. So it's not really, I have taught kids of all cognitive abilities, and that doesn't seem to be the holdup. It's a habit that has been reinforced for years and years. That becomes the trouble spot. And you know what, the family from Iceland, just to direct something to you, when I say that, it will affect your daughter. The more she gets into a habit of, here's the time of the bath. See, I think some of it is just habituated. She now may become habituated that I go real slow, I don't get my clothes. This sequence is maybe getting to be more of a habit than a true anxiety thing. It's like adding to her anxiety. So if you can change the way you do it, you might have a better chance of changing this habituated response.
We got about time for 2 more questions.
Okay.
5 minutes.
Okay, so my name's Shannon, and I have Kira. She's 7, and she starts. She has a new thing where she asks me for like 20 different things in 2 minutes. She wants a drink, she wants a snack, she wants to hold me, she wants this. And I don't think she really wants anything, but if she doesn't get something, she has a floor meltdown, that's what we call it, and she just like drops to the floor, and she'll attack who's ever walking by. And so now I kind of just let her do that, and then like when she's back up, she'll ask for something, and I probably will give it to her. Something I just want her to.
Okay, let's avoid that big thing, shall we?
Yeah. So I don't know, like when she.
I'd like to avoid that scenario. So here's how you're going to do it, and it was very similar to the advice that I gave you guys last night. When she asks for something, here's what I want you to do. I want you to think about, pull out from either what she's asking or something that you are intuiting that is what she really wants, which may be just she wants you at her beck and call. Like sometimes a kid asks for something, you're right, it's not the thing that they want you to be giving them something. And they themselves may not quite know what it is. I just want something from you. So I would pick maybe 1 or 2 things from her list that seem easy to give and perfectly appropriate, And then I would add my own thing. So I would say, let's say can you give me a couple things? Is it candy? Well, give me. Okay. So I would say something like, is it ever something like iPad in there, or is it usually food? Okay. So I might say, okay. First I always say, okay, to diffuse the idea that I'm going to say no. Right? So I say, okay, we can have the snack, you know, and I don't know if she can read it all, or if you can use, you know, I put it down anyway, even if she can't read, I make a big S. Snack. Sometimes with kids who do not read all, I just use my fingers. Snack, a drink, or I might do snack, iPad, or mommy time. That one she didn't put on there. It's like just me, okay? And those are our three things. And I would have her tap one. You would be surprised. Again, it's a small change in the way we approach it, but it really makes a big difference. I had a case of a little boy who had all kinds of multiple impairments, and the mom said that he just drove her crazy perseverating on candy, which she said, we never give him candy when he comes home from somebody. It's just candy, 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 candy. And I was there, and he did a meltdown. He went to the floor, and I said, look, here's what I want you to do. What can he have? And she said there was a banana, an apple, and a piece of cheese. I grabbed them from the fridge. I put them on the table, and I went like this. Luke, and I put the banana down. Banana, apple, cheese. Pick one. He picks the banana, perfectly fine, went to the table, and ate it. And she said, there's something about moving from an ambiguous sea of choices, what happens is the child has an urge, they don't even understand it. It's very generalized. I want something, I don't know. To having a parent take that role of guide, where you're not helpless. See, the more you kind of, well, do you want this or no? That makes it worse. And you simply, and it's concrete. Here, here, and it's visual. Here, 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 pick the one you want. You would be, I'm going to guess that probably more than half the time it's going to avoid that incident. And now she may actually be in a kind of weird habit where she asks for something, she cries and falls to the floor, she calms down, and then she gets it. That's her habit. Yeah, that's not a good, so what happens is she has linked all of these things. Well, that's one way to get somebody's attention. She has linked this pattern. So I want you to try that, Shannon. I honestly, that's something that I think I'm like 90% sure that's going to work for her. Fight it out. No, I get to pick which question I like to answer.
Hi, I'm Stacy. This is Rory. He's 7. We don't have the aggression, but we have a lot of giggling episodes. And usually a word triggers it. Sometimes someone will do a funny movement and it will trigger it. And I've found at home we can get it to stop if I either ignore it or I just redirect him. But at school or in public settings, there's an issue because people will give him a look. And he'll say, I can't stop. And then he'll just keep giggling, or it'll escalate. Or in class, it's really bad because kids will say, what's wrong, Rory? Yeah. What are you doing? And then at that point, it escalates to either one, he's being disruptive, or he throws his head back, and I worry about injury.
It just takes on a life of its own.
And or he goes into an attack because he can't self-regulate quick enough.
Okay. I love this question because there's an answer to it. And I think you have it yourself. I think what you're doing is actually the right thing. So when a kid gets into that sort of overstimulated, kind of giggly mindset and they can't get off of it, what you want to do is called it's a stimulus change is the name of what we do. Stimulus change. That is pretty much what you're doing. So you don't actually you don't put a spotlight on the giggles. The spotlight has to move off of it, often actually getting him to move into a different environment. Oh, here, would you throw this out in the garbage? Cuts that. Doing an abrupt stimulus change. I sometimes will tell teachers to have a kid go get a drink of water. drinking water often will cut a lot of these kind of, what I want to say, sort of escalating cyclic kind of, we're on a roll and we can't stop it. And I will give you a little a personal story, because this really shows it. You know, my son also had this perseveration as a young kid with Tourette's syndrome, and he had this weird habit of turning the lights, switching the lights on, off, and he would just stand there and do that. And it drove my husband crazy, because he had this theory, and I don't know that it's true, that you pay, that you somehow every time your light goes on and off, your bill goes up. So he would be like, stop it, Kevin, stop it. You know, he's seeing dollar signs, you know, going all over. And at one point, my little guy, and he was 7 at the time, he was going like this. He goes, stop it, I can't. And I just did this. I said, I came in and I pretended it had nothing to do with it. I said, Kevin, can you get me a drink of water? Sure, Mom. Here's what? He said, sure, Mom. And he went and got it. It's as though the brain is on this roll. And if you put something over here, the brain switches off and it gets out of that loop. So it's like that obsessive loop where he gets hooked in. And the more the spotlight is on that loop, the more it generates up. So you're doing the right thing when you say redirect, but I would make sure you redirect without any reference to what he's doing. It has to almost be like something happens over here that where he gets pulled into a different thing. And often having him do something, oh, get it, oh, would you get it? Or even the teacher would say, I'm sorry, what, Rory, is that it? Rory, would you pass this paper out on this side? I'm telling you, it will stop. He has to just disengage and sometimes, or send this note to the office. Redirect in a way that changes the momentum of what he's doing somewhere else that has nothing to do with that situation. And the more they stick with it, the more he's stuck. He's getting up anyway.
Me or her?
But yeah. Is this going to be a hard question? Oh.
My problem is this. When I take my son somewhere and he's 25, he will not get out of the car. This is, you know, this has been going on for a while, and it's progressed. Now my car doesn't have a keyhole on the passenger side, and I don't have a thing to open the doors. So I got to go back around. I got to end up putting a back window down, going around, opening up the door, and trying to get him out. He'll hang on to anything, gear shift, you know, console, and I mean, this is for like speech therapy, music.
Okay, I got your question, but I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What is his ability to get out of the car? Does he need your help? He can get out. Okay. What I would do, and this is a quick answer, may or may not work, I give the kid a mission and a focus about getting out of the car. So instead of having to be, okay, we're getting out to go to speech, I would give him a job like something where he has to set something out. Okay, where he has a job that gets him out of the car. So his focus is not about going to the speech, but his focus is maybe holding the door for you. Or it may be, okay, his job might be, it might even be, okay, I need you to look and see if you need to get out and let me know. Am I too close to the curb? Something that gives him like a mindset that gets him out of the car that has nothing to do with where he's going. Does that make sense? So like for other little kids, I might have them, you're getting out of the car, you're the first one, you have to hold the door for everybody else. That way their mind is on not the transition, but on their little important job. So if we can come up with a job for him that gets him out of that car, I think that it'll help that a lot. We're done, huh?
No, I agree. Assigning tasks. Yep. We're done.